Brigadier General Mark Himmet, the former Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs. In general, as we digest that scene that Clarissa was describing up near Kyiv, we know that civilians are suffering all over Ukraine, including Mariupol on the Sea of Azov, where there was supposed to be this ceasefire in a humanitarian corridor for a few hours to let people, some civilians, get out. But the Ukrainians are saying the Russians have broken that agreement, and they continue to shell, they continue to advance toward the city center. So now the Ukrainians are telling people to go back home. What does that tell you about Russian intentions, General?
Well, earlier you said it looked like an Escher print. I actually think those pictures look more like Guernica, the great Picasso print. But what I'm seeing inside Mariupol right now in that area is that the Russians are not moving forward. What they are doing is sitting back and shelling the city, surrounding it, trying to cause as much suffering as possible. They're not in a hurry to get into that city. They're in a hurry to create panic, but they don't want to put their troops in just now.
And the idea of this pause, the idea that they ever were going to pause to let civilians out, do you feel that was disingenuous?
Oh, absolutely. There hasn't been a ceasefire that's held with Russia. There hasn't been a humanitarian corridor that they haven't closed off eventually.
How long do you think the Russians can keep up this slow push, as one official was telling Jim Shooter the other day, the goal of this slow annihilation of cities like Mariupol and Kyiv? You know, they inch ever closer. Can they do that indefinitely?
Sure, as long as their food holds out, as long as their ammunition holds out, they can sit back and do this indefinitely. What they're trying to do is create panic inside the city. What they're trying to do is reduce the number of troops that the Ukrainians can put against them. And candidly, they're trying to starve the city the way they did in Stalingrad. That's the quickest way to end this siege, and also the way that reduces the number of their own soldiers that they're going to have to get killed going into the city.
How do Ukrainians counter that?
What the Ukrainians do is they attack the rear of the columns. They try to the greatest extent possible to become partisans at the back of that encirclement. But when the Russians put a siege around you, when they encircle you, that's a pretty tough fight.
General, I think I first met you 15, 16 years ago in Iraq. You probably don't remember because I was a young punk reporter there, but obviously you were part of the coalition when the U.S. and others were in Iraq. And I do wonder what lessons you learned. I was speaking to the mayor of Kherson, the Ukrainian city that is now occupied by the Russians. As the Russians occupy or try to occupy some of these cities, what are the troubles they'll face?
Well, it's a good example of what happened in Iraq. About that time, we were conducting operations in Fallujah. What we learned is what we've always known about urban combat. It is door to door, house to house, street to street. It is a slow, methodical process. The defender has the advantage by about a factor of 10 to 1. And you better have good troops that are willing to keep pushing until the job is done.
Do you think the Russians have the resources to do that in as many cities as they try to be closing in on, right? They appear to be trying to close in on?
I think they do. This is the Russian way of war. This is straight out of the military academy playbooks for the Russians. That's why they have 40-mile convoys to bring in the logistics, to bring in the food and water, to conduct these types of operations.
Retired Brigadier General Mark Himmet, thank you so much for being with us. Nice to see you again.
Thanks, John.